But yeah, the Michigan stuff is nice. I've been craving some stouts lately. I haven't had any in a long time, but been kind of craving that.
I'd love to get some Michigan stouts. It's been a very, very long time.
Yeah, we should maybe like find a brewery or something we can hit up or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll definitely do some scoping out what's around here, because I really haven't done a ton. Like, again, with my health situation too, I'm just kind of like, I'm just staying home and doing whatever. But like, it's good for me to have excuses to get out of the house. Like I went over because everybody got sick over the holidays. Me first, and then my buddy Josh, like the guys that I've been getting, the band guys and stuff, and friends from high school that I've been getting back together with back home for like the Mario Kart tournaments. Yeah. We finally did that again last week.
Nice.
It was this week. We did it on Monday. And we did like a 32 race tournament again, and we got through like 30 races, and then it like disconnected us. But that was better than we'd had in a long time. For whatever reason, whenever we have been getting together lately, we do like 2 races, get booted. We weren't even playing online. We were just like local network playing and just get booted.
Network
and, like,
playing. What do you which Mario Kart?
All on Switch on Mario Kart 8. So we're all at my friend's house, like all in the same room, and then just like network playing, like not online, just like LAN playing.
Yeah. Y'all need to get out your GameCubes and do Double Dash, but then you need the $100 is probably a gross underestimate at this point. I was gonna say $100 Ethernet adapter, but that sucker's probably way more expensive than today.
I can't even imagine.
And that was expensive before. Like, geez.
Hey everybody, welcome to Pursuing Pixels. My name's Kevin Portelli, and I'm here tonight with Randall Nolery.
Hey folks.
And it's just the two of us this week. John is at, you know what? He actually never replied in the Discord. I asked him what band he was going to see or what artist he was going to see tonight. I know he mentioned he was going to be out at a show tonight. He got some tickets for a venue, Sleeping Village, which unfortunately I never got to take enough advantage of. It opened up right by John and I's apartments in Chicago. Like, it was kind of like this little like kind of small bar, coffee shop in the morning, and then not all of a sudden it just opened up sort of out of nowhere, like right before COVID hit. So it never like really blossomed into what it was fully going to be. But like they would get like kind of decent sized touring acts to come through there, and like local bands played too. But seemed like a really cool venue. But yeah, it was John mentioned he was going to a show, and I was like, I don't think he ever mentioned who he was going to see tonight. But anyways, I didn't mean to go off on that tangent there. But just Randall and I. Yeah, and I guess since it's just the two of us, we're bound to go on a couple tangents while we talk some video games here as well.
Yes.
But we're definitely going to stick to the video games. And I guess Randall, why don't you get us started? I think you've been kind of playing some more of your resolution game from last year.
Yeah, my 2022 resolution game, which I talked a lot about in I think the last regular episode that I was on, and then I talked more about in our holiday edition episode because it ranked
you really
number 2.
Got me intrigued. Really got me intrigued. As like I always kind of wrote this game off, and I think I said this before too, but just kind of like, it's like the JRPG Panzer Dragoon, like totally off the beaten path. But then you're like, no, but the battles are still kind of this. It just you definitely were like, no need to write that game off, other than the fact that I can't afford it.
Yes, that it's inaccessible unless you like get it through. Like, if I don't even know if there's good Saturn emulators these days or not. I have the privilege of still owning a working Saturn in that game, but I know for a long time that wasn't the case, and then of course they never ported it because they lost the source code, which is just completely ridiculous.
That's just a shame for any game, honestly, even if it wasn't a classic or a rare forgotten gem or whatever. Like, it's just a shame that stuff like that gets lost.
Just for the preservation of it, right?
Right.
Even if it wasn't great, which it is great, so that's even worse. But it's like,
I mean, even old bands that I played in where I'm like, I know we had demos of those crappy songs, but like sometimes I want to get nostalgic and listen to them. I'm like, 100%. That hard drive is corrupted and those songs are just devastating now.
I know, isn't that rough? I feel the same way. I mean, yes, I feel the same way about that sort of stuff.
It's devastating, kind of. You have to just move on, but it is devastating in the moment.
It is, but I am a lucky owner of Panzer Dragoon Saga, and it was my resolution game, and I beat my resolution game. So Panzer Dragoon Saga is complete. I saw credits
That's impressive.
Yeah, and it was. I should have looked to see how long it took me, but it's a 4-disc game, which is kind of cool in a nerdy way too, because those are basically just like regular compact disc size, right? So it's not like they can fit a ton of data. So it had to be across the 4 discs to fit all the cutting edge full motion video and the lossless wave audio stuff that they had on there, which the soundtrack is awesome. I don't know that I spent a lot of time talking about it before, but I love that soundtrack. I even looked recently, like, did they put this out on vinyl yet? One of those cool, like, nerdy, like, music things. Did one of those good companies put this out on vinyl yet? And they did, of course, and I missed it. But the next time it's republished, I will get it, because even the battle theme, like, in an JRPG or a lot of RPGs that have those type of battles, like, you're going to hear that same theme over and over again, and even that could be make or break. But God, I heard that I've probably collectively heard that battle theme in small chunks for hours, right? Summed up time, and it's just banging. It's like such a good theme. I love it. Let alone the rest of the like really atmospheric synthy sort of soundtrack that's around this. And I love the soundtrack of the game. I love the vibes of Panzer Dragoon Saga, and it's a shame that it came out when it did on the platform it did, and that Sega was already kind of in this downward trajectory because of the failure of the 32X and then the American failure of the Saturn, and then Dreamcast just couldn't hold on long enough to make another Panzer Dragoon release work. And thankfully they did release Orta on Xbox, but that was again another traditional Panzer Dragoon, which
like
is
arcade
fine.
On rails shooter, which again, we'll take those all day, or I will at least for sure. But again, like, this is like putting another spin on it. Like, even though Panzer Dragoon is a fresh take in and of itself on the on-rail shooter, it's like adding another element to that is just so cool. I don't know. I'm always such a sucker for like blending couple genres together.
Me too.
Like, not that it always works, but
sometimes that can be very clunky or forced, and that never felt the case here. Gosh, it's just a great game to experience, and honestly, if you can play it like play it any way you can.
As I was going to say our pal, not that we know him, but our big fan. I'm a big fan. We're both big fans of SNES Drunk. I love that little tag of like, hey, this game's hard to find. Play it, or like if it's a arcade game or something. Just like, it is what it is. You gotta play it some way, shape, or form. But
I mean, like, I literally played. I kept my Saturn multi-tap adapter and my 3D control pad hooked up to my Saturn all year to make sure that I saw that game through. And the only time I disconnected it was when people visited. Otherwise, that sucker was connected and the wires were everywhere, just to make sure that I saw that damn game through the way it was meant to be, quote unquote, played. And I'm very happy for the experience, and I'm very glad that I forced myself to do that as a resolution game.
Yeah, I'm glad you did as well, because it actually got me, on top of the fact that I think I might have even mentioned this in passing on a podcast or save it for the cast episode, but John and I, or maybe when we were talking about it on the holiday episode or whatever, but John and I recently scooped up, and I think you already had it, the Panzer Dragoon Remake on Switch, which is just like a full-blown remake of the first game, again, back to the more traditional on-rail shooter, but being that I had only played the Sega Saturn like demo version, I kind of forgot that I had bought Panzer Dragoons Y at some point in time when we were in our like bigger collecting days. I probably got it at some point when we were out at one of our various shops, probably at Game Crazy, realistically.
Probably, because they had all those Saturn games.
They always had the Saturn
on that.
Like, I remember getting like Clockwork Knight there, and like a few just like random games, and we'd always be like, can you swap the cases on these? Like, this one's kind of busted up. Could you like swap that NBA case or whatever?
I was probably pushing you to get that one too, because I think Zwei is awesome. Probably the best rail shooter of that series. People really like Orta, but I think Zwei is fantastic.
Yeah, and I do own Orta. Neither of us can talk today, I guess, but I do own Orta as well, which I guess that is kind of tough to say. But
yes,
I don't have a disc playing Xbox anymore. I have like an actual like physical copy of it on Xbox, but I only have an Xbox Xbox One, I guess.
Yeah,
but
the digital.
Yeah, the discless system. So I don't have any means unless I just like download it again. But part of me is like, maybe they'll remake that and put it on Switch or something. So long story short, it was on sale for 90% off. So instead of $25, it was $250. And I was kind of riding the wave. I just got some Christmas gift cards. I think I had $40 worth of like Nintendo eShop points. And then I was like, oh, well, yeah, again, like I already kind of want to play this game. Randall just talked about the series. So I'm kind of like, I just got it on the mind and it just seems like a no-brainer. And then, as soon as John was like, oh, I'll scoop it up too. And I decided to fire it up. And I know you played some recently as well. I probably got through like the first 4 levels or so. And it was really cool because it actually, the first level was, from what I remember, I could be misremembering, but was not the first level from the demo disc. It was actually the second level. Because what I remember from the demo was like this like kind of sand desert level. Yeah. With like a worm, like kind of almost like a dune type worm.
Yeah, very dune.
Yeah, and it's just like they're popping out of the sand and you're like blowing up the different like links of the snake or
the
worm
shell.
Or whatever.
Yeah,
you gotta like blow off its like skin or whatever.
Yep.
And that's the level that I remember at least. Maybe that was just like that. Maybe you do play like the kind of water level before that, but that didn't seem familiar to me. But I really, it took me a minute to get into the groove with the game. But thankfully, because you had talked about, even in Saga on the podcast, you were kind of talking about how like it has that radar system. And like once you kind of learn how that radar works. And actually, I was thinking the whole time I was playing, I was like, I wonder how this would control on Saturn. I guess you had the 6-button controller, but you don't have the shoulder buttons. It felt really intuitive on Switch to just be able to press like left and right shoulder to pan the camera 90 degrees.
2 shoulders. You got shoulder buttons
on the Saturn. Oh yeah, it had those real clicky like soft. Oh I forgot about those. Those were weird.
You only have they're only one set, unlike modern platforms that have 2 sets.
I almost prefer that, to be honest, because I think I've said this before too. I on the podcast, like I tend to play and just use my index finger and just kind of shift it between those two, unless it's a game that really demands me to like have all 4 fingers at the ready at those buttons. But I don't know. I almost prefer to not have the option and just keep it simple, left and right. I don't want to wonder which one, or wish it was the shoulder and not the trigger, or vice versa.
I agree
if you
with
can't remap.
Yeah,
it's kind of nice.
Give me just 2 shoulder buttons, a left and a right, and let's call that okay. That's fine.
Yeah, I don't need like some tactile feeling trigger thing. I mean, for some games it does feel kind of nice, but for the most part, I do like to just immediate, like I press the button and it works. But at the same time, I love the GameCube shoulder buttons that are all like super pressure, spring loaded, sensitive. So
super
it just
analog.
depends on the situation, because it is awesome playing, Mario Sunshine, which I guess we'll probably get into later. Yeah. But it's awesome playing, like using that. Like it's almost like that controller was made to work with Mario Sunshine.
Yeah.
But anyways, back to Panzer Dragoon Remake. Like I got through the first 4 levels or so, and I really like how the structure seems to work. Like it seems like as you beat levels, you kind of earn more continues to like keep working through the game. Like it kind of like still had that like. I've even talked about with roguelikes on the podcast before. It almost like creates that like feeling of like, one more run, let me pump another quarter into the machine. Like it kind of felt like a good way to translate the arcadey feel of how that game works. And maybe that's how it was on the Saturn version as well. But I don't know, it just felt really nice.
Credits, but I unfortunately I didn't play the original Saturn version in a while. I like I said, I played a lot more Zwei than I played of the original game. This is just my go-to on Saturn. If I'm going to play a rail shooter, it's going to be Zwei, the second game, and not the first game as much. But I'd be curious now to like go back now that I've got the remake more fresh in my mind to see what the differences were that way too.
What kind of quality of life stuff there is, because it is really impressive, like seeing like the whole time while I was playing, because I got to like one of the parts, I died a couple times. Like the first time I started like really kind of dying on a regular basis, that I think it was like a boss battle on the 3rd or 4th level. You're kind of like in a cave sort of situation. There's like another dragon that's kind of like chasing you down, or some other kind of beast. Maybe it's not a dragon, but it's kind of chasing you down. It's got some really cool like camera angles. The camera angles can be a little janky at times. Like you're just like, what is going on? What am I supposed to be aiming at? Like, what is even happening right now? It can get a little bit wild, but for the most part, within a second or two, you can figure out what you're supposed to be doing. But I was dying a bunch on that segment, but I was thinking the whole time, like I was like, this looks pretty cool, but I wonder how this would have looked on the Saturn, because I do love that like 32-bit 3D, like super smudgy, smeary, like soft, almost pixelated look of those 3D graphics from what I remember of the demo.
I do too.
I don't want to say that like this version like strips the character out of it, because I don't think I still think it has a ton of charm. It's like this remake is done really, really well, I think, from the stages I played, and it runs really well on the Switch for that matter. And it really, I'm just glad to have it like again for $250.
Yes,
like I can just play it handheld on my Switch.
Same.
Pick up fire a few levels away, and the loading times are a little bit long at times between levels, especially when you're like very first starting it up.
Yeah, the loading times were noticeable, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of a bummer. Like, was that an optimization thing that we couldn't quite figure out? Because like I feel like we could have done a little bit better there. I saw it was on Xbox and I downloaded it there to compare, but then I'm like, oh shoot, it's not a Game Pass thing. I'm not paying $25 for this.
I'm not gonna buy it again. Yeah. But that is interesting. Yeah, I was thinking that too. I was like, I wonder if that's Switch related stuff or whatever. But it still looks great. It's still I really like how it has different difficulty settings. Again, maybe that was always in the original. Right. But me having only played the demo, like to me on normal, I almost once I got farther into the game, I was like, okay, this is starting to get tough. But like the first stage, I was like, I almost could maybe bump this up to hard. But once I started getting to like that dragon in the corridor tunnel, I was like, okay, this is not messing around. But I really like, I don't know, you just like the way it's like really cinematic. Yeah. And I don't know, it's definitely a labor of love. This remake is not like just a cash grab. Like they redid the opening cutscene. I don't know if it's the same thing just redone or if it's a totally new thing, but it's like pretty long. I ended up watching the whole thing. I was like, man, this is, but it kind of got me pumped to like jump into the the like it got me like, okay, here we go. Like once it kind of kicks off at the very end of that cutscene.
They definitely put more lore around it, for it being a shmup at its core, right? There's quite a bit of lore and story built up around it, but it kind of makes sense when you consider it was supposed to be one of the flagship Sega Saturn games, that they would have put that much production value into it. And I do agree with you in kind of talking about it that I kind of prefer the 32-bit stylings, and of course I'm more apt to say that now, having spent so much time with Saga on Saturn too. But that's kind of what I know. That's what I associate Panzer Dragoon more or less to be and look like and feel like and everything else. And yeah, the loading times are a little rough, and it does look good, but I do agree that it strips just a little bit out of like the feel of it, like it's like the way that they did the glossed over kind of the textures of it just to some degree.
It's like a little clean or a little, again, just like losing that kind of softness of the originals on the Saturn or whatever. It just kind of has this like really sharp, crisp, like almost bright look to it, where like I don't know, at least again the stage I played on the demo disc was like this sandstorm, brown stage, so that that's part of the factor as well. But I did see some like clips. I was just looking up like GIFs and stuff, I think just to post online when we had talked about it, and I was like, I saw like some of the enemies, like, oh yeah, that looks totally different. But it's not like it's not like, oh man, what did they do to that enemy? It's just kind of like, oh, that enemy almost had, kind of like I was talking about with the Klonoa remake recently. I can't remember if it was on the podcast or not, but like the Wii version of the remake, I think it was on a Save It for the Cast. But anyways, like the Wii version was just kind of like, it felt like they like sucked the character or the charm out of that game somehow, in some way, even though there's nothing wrong with it, but they just kind of like, it just felt lifeless in some way. And I wouldn't go as far with this game.
If it doesn't have, then it's like it's pulling away from the vibe and the spirit of the thing that was made originally to some degree. It gets lost a little bit in translation sometimes.
And those are the perfect words too, because it is just kind of like a vibe and the spirit. It is just like a feeling. You can't necessarily put it tangibly into words, because it's not like I'm just like, I like the worst graphics better. Like it's not like it doesn't necessarily make sense, but it's just like, and it's not like I grew up on the game. Like I just I just like it better.
But you kind of did a little bit, but that's,
and there's a nostalgia for that just era as well, of like just pushing technology as far as it could go, at the time. Like this system shouldn't really be playing 3D games realistically, but we're just gonna make it happen.
And I have such an affinity for like the early 3D Sega arcade stuff from like the early to mid 90s. Just like I have a big affinity for that like visual style and a lot of like the actiony gameplay that they were just nailing in that time period.
Even like the reticle or the cursor in Panzer Dragoon, like it takes a little getting used to, and there are quite a few actually different options. I didn't tweak them too much because it felt fine, pretty much in the standard settings, but they did have different options for like different types of reticles. Like, but the way it like takes a little getting used to, it's like because you're starting to like focus on like the kind of these like squares that are rotating like kind of in front of you. Yeah. But like you really have to like focus on this like kind of like it's like kind of like a what's that term in art where it's like the point of the vanishing point or something or whatever. But you're kind of like aiming at that like this point way off in the distance, and it takes a minute to get used to because you're aiming and steering at the same time. And it's just like, I think that's what adds so much more because it is like, it is almost like a time cop type game. Other than you're not like stopping for like scene after scene, but you're like, hey, here's a wave of enemies. Yeah. And then here's a little cinematic, it is go around the bend.
Gunny, and which is also why I like it, right?
Right. But it's just like light gunny without the stop and go as much. It's just kind of go. But yeah, there is like the little kind of cut scenes. They're just like, oh, we're going up through the cave as it collapses and there's nothing really happening. You're just kind of flying around. But yeah, it's cool. Like you got to dodge stuff and get used to like where your dragon's positioned, and I don't know, just really cool, unique, one of a kind type game.
Definitely worth $250. Series,
no kidding.
I just half the reason why I bought it again digitally, besides the convenience, is because please, I hope the sales could spur, this is why to
a remake of the whole series.
But I don't know that that's going to happen. And I will say, the version of Orta that's out on Xbox One and the modern Xbox platform just plays gorgeously. It has aged very well for being an Xbox original game. So if you want the kind of the regular style Panzer Dragoon type of gameplay a la Star Fox, I'd probably point people, if you have a modern console, at that more than anything else, at the Panzer Dragoon Orta game.
And that's even though it's harder. Orta's its own game, right? It's not like a remake, because I was kind of under the impression, it's like a remake / reimagining of the first one. Like when I first heard of it, and then I was like, it's kind of its own thing. There's a lot of layers of complexity. So in one sense, I suppose it's not the best first game to play because there's a lot of like different dragon modes and things like that. But it's just there's a layer of polish there, despite it having relatively modern visuals. It's pretty good. Yeah, and it's probably worth mentioning, and I think we talked about this before briefly when you brought up Saga, or just when we've talked Panzer Dragoon at some point. Like I know we've mentioned Rez in passing. Yeah. And if somehow you've played Rez, because I for some reason I could see that game maybe not clicking with people, just being like, this is a little too obtuse for me, or I don't know what's going on. Like if you maybe were intrigued by Rez, but it didn't quite click, like Panzer Dragoon might be one that could, number one, be an easier game to get into, but might make Rez click a little bit more once you kind of like, I get how this control scheme works.
Similar.
And, now I can kind of like bring that over to this like sort of rhythm shooter.
Yes.
I don't know. I just feel like it's worth mentioning that those games have like some shared lineage.
Yeah, Rez is awesome too.
No, so
also
cool.
a big fan of Rez.
Yeah, that's another. I think I have the HD remake on one of the consoles I have on PS3, maybe. Which my PS3 is kind of fried, but
that sounds about right.
I have it somewhere.
Yeah, same.
But yeah, speaking of remakes, sort of not really remakes, ports. Half-assed ports with things attached to them that are not half-assed by any stretch of the imagination. And actually, speaking of our holiday episode, were you good on the Panzer Dragoon there? By the way,
yes.
I felt like we were wrapping that up there. So I'm always when I just assume it, I'm always second guessing it in the back of my brain, like, oh wait, did Randall want to chime in there? But after Randall's kind of hyping up of Bowser's Fury on the kind of added sort of DLC-esque, campaign that got added to Super Mario 3D World on the Switch along with the port. He raved about that multiple times on the podcast, including on our holiday episode. So I was like, okay, if Randall's putting this in his top 3, I was already kind of like, my mom and my aunt and a couple people were pestering me for Christmas. Like, what do you want for Christmas? What do you want for Christmas? And I was like, okay, what are like a couple games that I just need to kind of round out my collection? I was like, I never bought Mario 3D World. And now that Randall's talking about Bowser's Fury so highly, I think I need to like make that happen. And I ended up firing it up. I did a Patreon poll in our Discord, and actually Mario's I think I mentioned this on the podcast too. I feel like I'm always just repeating myself, but Mario Bowser's Fury ended up winning.
Nice.
So I was like, okay, perfect. I'm going to dive into that. And I ended up playing a stream where I played, just to get warmed up, I played like the first 3 levels of Super Mario 3D World. I actually played as Peach to just kind of jump around. How does this feel different? She basically feels like Luigi pretty much, with like a slightly different mechanic, but you got that like hover, whatever. Beat the first few levels, and I was like, okay, let's jump over to Bowser's Fury, and ended up playing like on that stream, played probably about an hour and a half or so of Bowser's Fury, and then was kind of like the setup I have with my temporary, like for streaming console games, it's not the most ideal situation. I just have like cords all over the room. So once I kind of like took it down after that stream, I was like, as much as I want to almost just stream more of this and just kind of kick back and play some more, I was like, I'm just going to play on my own time and play it, just whenever I have some free time. And it really kind of grabbed my attention more than I expected. Like, number one, it was a bigger game than I expected. Just even based on, I know you had kind of said that, but it was just still bigger. Like, because at one point I had about 20 of the cat shines that you collect, which are basically like the stars that you collect throughout the game. And like you kind of are unlocking these different gigabells, which are different areas sort of the map as you go. That you kind of like unlock. It's almost like a tropical island setting that you're just kind of like zipping around it. Actually, while I was playing, I was like, this is making me want a new wave race game, because you're constantly
don't talk to me about
hopping
that.
On top of Plessy from is it? When did Plessy first appear in Galaxy, or I don't know? And maybe it was 3D World. It might have been 3D World.
It might have been, but it does feel like Plessy was around before then.
There was, there were those Galaxy levels that had like that manta ray and like some other like different like rideable. I don't know if Plessy was in there, because Plessy feels amazing to control. That was like maybe some of my favorite parts of the game. Just dive, like the way they have like the almost like obstacle courses set up throughout even. Like the actual challenges to get like cat shines are cool, like really tough and fun, but like even just going around and going through the rings that are just there for fun. Is just a blast.
And I never made that wave race connection. That's a good point too. What made me really think of it was like, because remember in Wave Race, you could like go under the wall. Like if you went up over a ramp, and then if you like held down forward, you could like dive under the water and then like emerge from underneath. And like with Plessy, you have to like, or you don't have to, but in some regards, sometimes you kind of
do. You like go under the water, and then if you jump right as you're coming out of the water, you get like a speed burst. And it's
Plessy
just like, that was the best part of the game. Well, I shouldn't say that. I really liked a lot. I have some issues with it too, but because it kind of feels like a mess in a lot of regards too. I do think like a lot of times while I was playing it, I was like, this almost feels like it was made by Sega, because it just feels
I hear no problems yet.
Totally chaotic. And like my biggest gripe with the game is like, I almost wish, as much as it worked better than it did in Odyssey, because it's almost like the reason I liked it more than Odyssey is because it basically felt like all the extraneous stuff that was in Odyssey, where it's just like, just go ground pound or go talk to this dog or talk to this cat, like strip all that away. And there's basically just like a bunch of there's basically like 12 or 15 different like gateways that are basically almost acting as like a painting in Mario 64, like, jump into this, but it's all interconnected, like open world. But you're kind of like, okay, I'm in this area. This is the area that has these challenges. And they had some of that in Odyssey, just not enough of it, in my opinion. But they did have like parts like, this is clearly like a Super Mario 3D World level within this game. You know, it's just like kind of set aside. And that's kind of what this whole game was. But my main gripe, like up until, so I had about 20 cat shines, and I was thinking like the next gigabell, it was like, you need 40 cat shines to unlock the next gigabell. And I was like, gee, like I felt like I had gotten them all when I was at 20. So I was like, where the heck are all these other cat shines? So then going around, and then like eventually I'm chipping away, and I'm like, I got 40. And then like, once I got 40 and maybe a little more than that, maybe it was 50, you like can kind of like quote unquote beat the game. And then after you beat that like kind of final Bowser battle, and things sort of open up after that, and then it's like, actually there's 100 cat shines, and here now Bowser Jr. is like, I can warp you around and get you around a little faster, and here's a checklist. And like once that opened up, the game got way more fun to me. But I did think it, like, until I got used to like the loop of like, because it is sort of weird, like I almost feel like it would have worked better jumping into paintings, because I was sort of confused as like, man, I got the 5 like collectible cat shines to like, the hidden ones to like to get one. It seems like there's like 2, there's like a main challenge, and then the 5 cat shines on every level. It's like sort of how it seems at first. And then it's like, oh wait, now you got to do this like when it's in Bowser Fury mode, you got to get him to like blast these blocks with his fire blast.
Yes.
And like,
to get
okay, so now that's
ones.
another challenge. And then it's like, oh, now that I've like completed that stuff, I can go back to that area. And now there's like a blue switch I can ground pound to collect blue coins. So it's like, it took me a minute to understand the loop of like, oh, they're like it would have made more sense if I was like, oh, I'm jumping into a painting. Now there's a new challenge like this time around. So it did take a minute to click in that regard. Mm-hmm. And I guess when I say it feels like a mess, it just like, it feels like total chaos when it goes into Bowser's Fury mode.
It is.
And you're like trying to get and especially later in the game when you're like, I just need to like him to blow away these 2 freaking blocks. And like, I'm just waiting for it to happen. Like there's some elements where it just felt kind of unbalanced in that regard.
Sure.
But all that said, it's been a long time since I've just been like, 2-3 days straight, like I'm playing nothing but this game.
Yeah.
I'm 100%ing it.
Yeah.
I'm getting every last cat. I got every single cat shine in the game.
Same.
Started to get a little bit frustrating towards the end, like
Sure.
when you start finding some of those hidden cats. Like when I got the last shine I got was like I had to find the 5 hidden cats in that area, and I was like, oh my god.
Yep.
Like I thought it was just gonna be 1 again, and I was like, oh my god, I gotta find 5 of these, and
they're pretty
hidden,
well
like,
hidden.
Yeah, they're hidden like in very bizarre spots sometimes.
That you're like,
and then,
is this part of the same area even?
Right,
oh, it
right.
is.
And it's like I don't think they would put it in a level like past the gate, but like I think one of them was.
I think so, yeah. Some of them are pretty trepidatious to get back without getting hit or whatever, right?
Yeah.
You can't double jump or use any of your powers really at that point when you're holding a cat.
Yeah, and that's actually, I'm glad you said that because I almost forgot about one of my other gripes, and I guess 3D World did this too, and I didn't notice, but they took away the triple jump, like how you could like do the jump and then like jump again right as you land, and then jump again and do like the triples.
Yeah,
like, you just can't do that in this game at all, or in 3D World. Which was bizarre to me. I was like, I feel like I that's like one of my favorite things to do in Mario games. Yeah. So I just couldn't believe that I didn't notice that.
Yeah.
But the other thing that I found kind of a little bit more frustrating that I like a little bit more about 3D World, I like how in 3D World and in Land and whatever, and even in Galaxy and stuff, in the previous, like the camera always is like you're nudging it like 45 degrees at a time. Mm-hmm. In Bowser's Fury, you have 360-degree control of the camera, and I just felt like at times, like especially because there is a dedicated like run button, which in like Mario 64 and stuff, I don't think there is. I could be wrong about that, but I don't think there is. So because of that, I found myself like holding down Y and then like reaching over my thumb with my index finger to like pan the camera as I like ran around a corner. I just found it like the camera really like to hold down the run button, and which is the way I tend to play Mario games at all times.
Oh yeah.
It did get a little bit frustrating. Like I had to just kind of decide. I had to just like not play the way I wanted to play and just say, okay, I'm just not going to run as much until I know I'm like, on a straightaway or whatever. But
and most of that game is designed kind of vertically because you're kind of going between little island pieces.
Yeah, that's
more
a good
than,
point. Yeah.
And you're kind of traveling between those island pieces with plus E or with, maybe just little platforms or whatever.
A connected bridge, maybe, or like a tube or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I will say, like, in spite of all those like kind of gripes and whatever along the way, once I really got rolling, and especially once I kind of cleared and even a little bit before I cleared the final boss battle or whatever, but like when I was at about 40 shines or whatever, like that was when it started clicking. Like, okay, I'm getting the loop. There's 5 cat shines on each island or each little like outpost. And then there's a few extra kind of just hidden bonus ones, like chasing down the rabbits. Like that was so fun with Plessy, like chasing down the rabbits, like kind of, and just all the little throwbacks. And it really is just kind of a really nice mix of all the games. Like you said before, it kind of has probably the most sunshine in its DNA out of any of the games.
Yeah.
But definitely has some 3D World and 3D Land in there as well, especially with the move set and just the way Mario feels to control. But I don't know. I really got sucked into it. And even the Bowser battles are like a little... They weren't the best, but they're just different than the usual. Like usually it's just like, he does a ground pound and you got to jump over the rings and whatever. This was like kind of, you got to like grab stuff like out of the ground and throw it at him. And I don't know, just pretty different, pretty unique. I don't know, pretty unique game. I like the concept too of like, you don't have lives, because usually you're just racking up a million lives in Mario games. Like I like how you just lose 50 coins when you die, but every 100 coins you just get a new power up to like kind of keep in your little arsenal. I know you mentioned that too. You can kind of just like hit up on the D-pad and pop up like one of your 5 or 6 power. I think you can hold like up to 5 of each item.
Yeah, you get a little string of different item abilities you can kind of have in your pocket there.
And you definitely need to kind of have most of them handy because there's like clearly like, okay, this challenge on these like rotating, like more like Mario Galaxy-esque block stages, like above all this lava, which is like insta kill. Like that's another thing. Like usually in Mario games, like you jump on the lava in the 3D Mario games and you can kind of bounce and take a few hits and and like kind of skim my toe kind of vibes, you know? But like in this, it's like instant kill.
Yeah.
Like, and you're back to the checkpoint.
Yeah,
so
same
like,
with the tar.
Really,
yeah.
Yeah, there really were some tough, challenging moments in the game, but it as much as it was a mess when it goes into Bowser's Fury mode, it does lead to some really satisfying, like there was like one moment where I was like running across this like collapsing bridge, like you know, those like little tiles that pop up or fall beneath you, or maybe it was clouds, I can't remember, but there's like speed burst panels, and then like I got to the end, got a cat shine, Bowser's there like blast, like I was already at a point where it was like, oh, collecting cat shines doesn't make Bowser go away anymore, like you got to just take him on. And so like I did this like long jump like right over his like flame it was there were so many moments that were like, holy, like, oh, let me save that clip, that was crazy.
I know,
just so many moments like that. But it honestly, it was quite a bit bigger than I expected. It felt almost the length of Mario Sunshine, like a little bit shorter than that. But I remember like when I beat Sunshine thinking like, man, if this was just more like the length of Mario 64, it'd be just as good of a game. And I kind of was right there with this game. I was like, man, and it stripped out the stuff that annoyed me more about Odyssey, and it just wasn't so overstuffed. I just thought, man, this is really fun, fresh take on Mario.
Yeah. Like a true 3D Mario experience as basically bonus content to Super Mario 3D World is a pretty cool thing. Like,
yeah,
you know,
like it felt like they were able to take a few more chances knowing that, hey, this isn't like a mainline Mario game.
True.
Or, you know, but it's not a full-blown spin-off. But like we talked about before with John, too, I do wish that it, you know, you could just download it for $20 or $30.
It's so silly that you can't. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, but I like it's a legit $30. Like I wouldn't be mad if I paid $30 and that's what I got. I'd be like, oh man, that's well worth like even 40. Like it's a pretty jam-packed. I really thought it was going to be more of a just kind of, okay, we have to justify releasing this port, so
right.
You know, we'll give you something. And it's like, oh, this is cool. I'm curious if this will, any of these mechanics or any of these ideas will show up in the next Mario.
Right.
Game,
I think they could easily build off of that to make the next 3D Mario.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty easily. I would be perfectly happy with that, to be honest. Yeah,
I definitely would not, especially if they bring some Plessy mechanics or I mean, it doesn't have to be that character, but just something along those lines. Like I really liked that feeling of just traveling around. And
open world, the land appearing a la Toe Jam and Earl as you're like kind of unlocking things. I just, you know, I'm into all that stuff.
Yeah, the pacing felt really good. Like it just felt like, again, once when I wasn't quite sure what was going on, I was still like, man, how am I going to get all these shines? But like the pacing just felt really nice where like sometimes you can feel overwhelmed with too much stuff to do in a Mario game. It's like, okay, I clearly just haven't been over here yet. Let's go over here and chip away.
Yep.
So I don't know. And I forget, did you get a chance to play any of the 2-player mode at all?
Not really. No.
Because I was kind of curious how that would work. Just being that like your partner would play as Bowser Jr.
Yeah.
Like it just seemed kind of interesting, but
yeah,
I don't know, just different from the usual. Like even just that like angle of like, hey, my dad's like a little more mad than usual. Like he seems like he's going crazy. Like you got to help me calm him down, Mario.
Yeah. Papa's a little wild right now. Yeah.
Yeah. And all the like almost like Yoshi's Crafted World vibes of like when Bowser would like Bowser Jr. would like do the paintings and stuff to kind of like give the storyboard stuff. Just really, really. And that kind of had a Mario Sunshine sort of vibe too. So,
oh yeah. Bowser Jr. was big in that game for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I kind of forgot that was sort of like, not the introduction of the character, but definitely the like
more or less
push of it in like a mainline game. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, any more Mario 3D stuff or just Mario in general or?
I mean, no, I'd probably prefer, all I'd say is I'd probably prefer that this new Bowser's Fury game over playing Mario Sunshine for what that's worth. Personally,
the only thing I'll say, I do love how expressive the like flood mechanics are. And even just
totally.
Like on that very first stage of Mario Sunshine where you can like jump on those like elastic like telephone lines or whatever. Like some of that is like, oh, it's so fun. But
yeah, that's fair. There's the novelty of that sort of 3D platforming didn't happen in a lot of other games. So
yeah, it's a little more expressive of a move set in that game than in Bowser's Fury. Like that's probably my one real like actual gripe of Bowser's Fury is that they just kind of took away some of the things that really make Mario fun. Like even, you know, with like obviously in Odyssey you've got Cappy as well to like chuck around and do like quadruple jumps and stuff like that. But like not even being able to do that like triple bounce, because there were some parts I was like, oh, I think I'll be able to get up there by doing like the quick flip around jump or like the duck backflip jump, and like, oh yeah, you can't do that quite the same either. Like it just a few little differences that I think that's how it works in. Yeah, it's like yeah, exactly. I can't cheese it. Although you can definitely cheese some stuff in this game too, which felt awesome. Like
for sure
on some of the challenges, like where you have to get like the key, and then bring it back to like the start of the level. Like you get those like little spinner propeller boxes or whatever hats that like you can like basically skip the whole stage, get to the key super fast, but then you're like, oh shit. Now I got to get back down because I can't hold the key while I'm wearing that propeller hat. So usually it's like, oh, do I have any Tanuki suits that I can throw on here so I can just like flutter my way down to the bottom? Because like you said, it's usually vertical, like all the way up at the top. And if you do have a Tanuki feather, you can just kind of, or leaf or whatever, you can just kind of flutter your way down and almost cheese most of them. But if you land in the water, that key's or lava or whatever, that key's going right back to where you got it. So yeah. Yeah, it's a different kind of Mario game. It's definitely a little more punishing, a little more difficult, but definitely a cool experience. I'm glad you kind of gave me the nudge to be like, okay, I don't know what I was thinking. I need that game in my collection.
I'm glad about that. That's awesome.
Yeah. Oh, and speaking of, actually, because I know unfortunately for Bowser's Fury, it has that 2-player mode, but I like it's just local and you can just do Mario and Bowser Jr. But I didn't know that 3D World you can play online. 1 to 4 players. So when I was looking at that, I was like, oh man, me and Randall are gonna have to sync. I don't know if John has
I didn't even think about that. That's 3D true.
World, but that's something that for some reason I just didn't. That I would have assumed honestly Nintendo would not have.
That's the thing, right?
Like a solo.
It's so unusual for Nintendo to do until the Switch era, and even then it's been a little hit and miss for how they apply it. Yeah.
Like I expected, obviously, for stuff like Smash or Mario Kart or whatever, but I assume if it's not like a strictly Mario or strictly multiplayer, strictly Mario Party is what I was going to say.
Well, not even then.
Multiplayer. Yeah, exactly. They got to patch it like 2 years later.
Yeah.
But it just seems like, Nintendo's not, you can't count on it. So when I saw that, I was like, 1 to 4 players locally or wireless or online or whatever. I was like, man, we should try to sync up and play some of these because I have not played that game in a long time.
Same.
3D World, other than the couple levels I played to refresh my memory. And I definitely never 100%ed it. I know that. Some of those challenges at the end of that game are impossible.
Oh, they are. That's a good game, though.
Yeah, it's great. One of my favorites to be. I like Land a little bit more, Same. 3D Land, but I still think probably the same syndrome as Galaxy 1 and 2. Like I like Galaxy 1 a little bit more than 2, but if they would have came out in the opposite order,
who knows?
To say, I'd probably just be like, oh man, this is so fresh. And then
more of that.
Oh, more of the same. Cool.
Yes.
But it's not quite as impressive the second time around, but
exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
But I'll happily take some more Bowser's Fury sort of situation second time around. It would be cool to see them maybe like throw like a new villain into the mix and, just like, hey, make something a little crazier and throw Mario into kind of a new setting.
Mm-hmm. I'd be down.
Nothing against Bowser. We know the kids love Bowser these days, so can't take him out of the game.
Make him the enemy, or make him the good guy.
Well, I love when they kind of team up in like the RPGs and stuff.
Yeah,
so that could be cool.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But I think we could probably wrap up the video games chat there this week if you're good on your end, Randall. Yeah, I'm definitely on that Mario kick. Like, there's just something about a 3D Mario platformer where I'm just like sucked in. It's got me like in that mode of like I want to beat games, go on adventures again. It's just I don't know, something about playing Mario game makes me feel like a kid. So
definitely, it's very ingrained.
Yeah, it's more than other games, and it's not just the nostalgia. It's, I mean, obviously I can't separate myself from that, but they're just so fun and like not stressful, even when they're hard. Because this
industry
game
standard
does get
stuff,
pretty challenged.
Yeah, exactly. It really both 2D and 3D. Like if you want to play a platforming game, play most of those Mario games.
Yeah, just can't go wrong. And unfortunately, we don't get too many 3D platformers these days, although that's kind of changing. And actually, one that I really want to check out just to go on a brief tangent before we wrap up, there's a new game coming out, or that already came out actually on Switch and other platforms. It's called Lunistis, I believe. Yeah. And it's supposed to like be kind of modeled. They said they're kind of going for like a 32-bit era 3D platformer, and that's sort of the aesthetic they're going for. And it's only like $5, I think, full price on Switch. I've been meaning to scoop that up. It just looks like kind of like almost like a Tori 3D sort of type platformer, but that's sort of fun. Like Crash Bandicoot corridor style platforming. But I'm like, since we're talking Sega Saturn, that reminds me that I got to pick that game up.
That would be cool.
Yeah, looks super fun, super fast pace, and yeah, just anything going like capturing that era of nostalgia. I'm all about it.
Oh yeah, I like those Tori games. Those are fun.
Yeah, those are a lot of fun. Yeah. But yeah, anyways, we can wrap it up there this week. And until next time, you can find us on the internet at pursuingpixels.com and pretty much everywhere else. And until then, we'll catch you next week and take care.
Bye-bye.
I feel like I repeated myself a couple times there at the end, but it gets the job done.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, that was a fun one. I feel like I talked too much. I was like, man, do you want to chime in there, Randall? I was just blabbering about Mario there, but
no, I didn't know if we were going to do the Mario Golf one in that one or the next one.
Oh shit! I totally forgot about that. I totally forgot. But then you were on like
the platforming and connecting it to other 3D stuff. So I'm like, oh, maybe he's holding that back for the second episode, or maybe we already hit our time commitments on this one, which I'm totally fine with.
We did, but we definitely could. I could definitely just figure out a way to pick up. I totally forgot about that.
No, put it.
Yeah, because we need a little padding, anyways. Because I was just gonna do like my Ludum Dare rambling in case, but
no, Mario Golf is very much a different thing in the first place. So
yeah, I totally
name.
I wrote down Panzer Saga remake and Mario, and I think I was watching the time. I was like, okay, we hit about 40 minutes. That looks for 35 minutes. I was like, that should be good.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Shoot, I'm so sorry, but I literally forgot about that game.
No, that's fine.